What's going on, y'all? It's your boy Cool Colas here, and you are now tuning into a new video on my channel. But before we get on to the topic today, I would love for you to do a few things for me. First of all, go ahead and hit the subscribe button if you are not already subscribed to this channel, although you already should be. Hit the like button. Share this video with all your friends, family, and anybody else who you think would enjoy the topic for today. Hit the bell icon so that you get notifications for whenever I come out with new content on this channel. And at the very end, I would love for you to leave me a comment below. That way I can get back to it when all is said and done. For today's topic, I want to do a quick review of the Knuckles TV series, or season 1 of it. I'm going to give you all the short answer of what I think about this show, and then I'll elaborate on why I feel this way. I thought that it was absolutely god awful. I mean, this show was a shit show. I mean, I actually couldn't believe it was as bad as it was because of the track record of how well the Sonic series has done. Now, let me give you a little bit of insight as to why I feel this way about this series. For those of you all who do not know, I am a huge Sonic the Hedgehog fan. Matter of fact, Sonic was the first series that got me into liking comics, because my first comic book actually was a Sonic the Hedgehog comic book, like the Archie series. Now, I also was a fan of the video games. I played Sonic 1 through 3, Sonic and Knuckles. I played Sonic Adventure 1, Sonic Adventure 2. I could just keep going. I've had so many Sonic games, it's not even funny. You know, Sonic Heroes. I didn't have Sonic 06, but I played it before. I had a lot of the games. I'm just a big Sonic fanatic. That's the point I'm trying to get at. So I'm very familiar with the way that the games went and then what happened in the comics and things like that. So I had a certain expectation of the way that I see the show and the movies going because of the lens I have from playing the different video games and also being a fan of the comics and whatnot. Again, this show was god awful. It was god awful because I had high expectations, because Knuckles the Echidna is my favorite Sonic character. Anybody who knows me knows I'm a huge fan of Knuckles the Echidna. But this series did the character and really the Sonic the Hedgehog video game movie series no justice whatsoever. Let me start off by saying that there were a few positives, but the positives were so minute, it doesn't outweigh how shitty the rest of the show was. The first positive was the fact that Idris Elba, we all know that he was perfect for the Knuckles role. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that Knuckles had to be played by a brother. And Idris Elba was a great pick for that. And he was consistently good, the same way that he was good, really great, if I'm being honest with you, great in the Sonic 2 movie, which to me was damn near a perfect movie. It's as good as you're going to get for a video game series movie. I'm just being totally honest. So the point I'm trying to make, though, is that that character was still just as consistently good as it was in the second movie. I saw maybe like one little flaw where I felt like he was about to start using his accent, like his British accent, but outside of that, I thought that it was great. That might have been the best part, was Knuckles himself. But that leads to the main issue with the series. Literally, we barely saw Knuckles. Knuckles was barely present. And what I mean by that is he felt like a guest in his own show. It felt like it was the Wade and Knuckles show, or the Wade show. Because Wade was supposed to be the human character that he was going to get acquainted with and become friends with. And it felt like it was more his show than it was the Knuckles show. Knuckles was almost just a reference in his own damn show. I did not like that at all. I thought that was a bunch of bullshit. And I have a couple theories as to why they ended up doing this. But the main theory that I believe that they were, as to why they felt the need to have more of Wade than Knuckles, is because I think that they were trying to embody something that was very silly in the way that they did with the Sonic series. What I mean by that is, if you look at the Sonic series, there was the human character and then there was Sonic. And Sonic was very goofy, you know, very jokey, very comical, and the human character was very serious. And then in this series, it was the reverse. And I think that they were trying to keep their comedic tone. But here's the problem with that. They, instead of just keeping the comedic tone, it's almost as if they allowed comedy to drive who the main character and the inspiration of the story should be centered around. Because think about it. In the Sonic series, it was completely and 100% about Sonic the Hedgehog himself, while Sonic was supposed to be the silly character. And so that created that whimsical tone throughout the entire movie. And it worked because it made sense. With the Knuckles series, it was the opposite. Knuckles was the more serious character. Now they got comic relief off of him being so serious, but at the same time, he was the serious one between him and then Wade. So that tells me, because Wade was the main person who was being portrayed in this series, that they were going with whoever was the most comedic. So one theory I have, again, is that they were allowing comedy to drive who the main character was, instead of allowing the series to be about who the fuck it was titled as, which was Knuckles. That didn't make any sense. Now, the other theory that I have is that they were trying to appeal to kids. I don't understand this appeal to kids shit when you have series that people like me who are my age and around my age were in love with. We were all in love with the Sonic series. All of us who are probably in our 30s, in our probably late 20s to some extent. Some of y'all probably was babies around that time. But my point is that series was supposed to appeal to people who are around my age. And they're trying to appeal it to kids. That's why they're trying to make this goofy kind of tone and trying to make it more about like the human characters being incorporated along with the Sonic series characters that we see. The reason why that's problematic and that's some bullshit is because kids really don't give a shit. If kids see a furry red echidna or a furry blue hedgehog or a furry yellow fox like Tails on screen, then they're already going to like it just because of that. They're going to say a bunch of gibberish and they're going to jump up and down and make noises and say shit and ask a bunch of questions. I'm just being honest with you, while we're watching the movie anyway. So they didn't need to make more of a human presence in order to try to appeal to children. Because again, this was supposed to be, from my perspective, fan service to people who were fans of the Sonic the Hedgehog series. And I noticed too, they did all that promotion. They did all that black scalping in order to even get people to watch the series. That's why they had the little Knuck If You Buck music that they were playing, that they had remixed on the Knuckles trailers that we saw, because they were trying to reel a lot of people in. So they scalped our culture once again, using rap songs and shit to be able to portray the Knuckles series. So when I saw that, I'm like, okay, they're trying to get people interested in it. And obviously, again, people who are my age would know about Knuck If You Buck. But then we actually watch it and it's clear that they're trying to appeal to kids or to people who have absolutely no knowledge of the Sonic the Hedgehog series whatsoever. So I want to be clear. I'm saying this from the perspective of somebody who is a huge Sonic the Hedgehog fan. But to be totally honest with you, we are the people that this TV show should have been appealing to more than anyone else. Yes, I do not care if you are a casual fan who just wanted to see an interesting movie. Yes, I do not care if you were a kid. This TV show was supposed to be about fan service and they fucked that up. Anyway, so it also failed in a lot of places that the movie failed in as well, or the movie succeeded in. For example, the movie had a lot of references to a lot of Sonic related things. You know, sometimes you had certain ringtones that would play Sonic music or things like that. They had one in this series where, they had Wade who was dressed up as Knuckles and he was acting like he was going through a stage and things like that. And they did have a cool reference to the Iblis Trigger character who was supposed to be in Sonic 06, which could be a foreshadow. If that's what they were trying to do, I think that was cool, so I will give them props for that. But there weren't like any casual Sonic music sounds or ringtones or anything like that in this series whatsoever. And there should have been more references to something that was related to Sonic itself. Now, the other problem with this TV show, I keep calling it a damn movie, with this TV show, was that it focused so little on Knuckles that you didn't even notice that the issue wasn't just Knuckles being crafted more into the series, but the issue also was that the villain was some bullshit as well too. Let me tell you what I mean by that. They had so many chances to have a great villain for this series and introduce new characters into the franchise that everybody would have loved as a Sonic the Hedgehog fan. But they failed. They literally failed in every possible way. And I'm going to give you the options of people that they could have done. They could have had the Dark Legion from the comics, which were these group of, this gang actually, of evil echidnas who Knuckles had to fight, Knuckles and his friends, like the Chaotix. You could have had Rouge the Bat as an actual villain, so that she could have been the antagonist of the movie, but later they would have changed her character, which to me would have made sense. They could have had Chaos, since they conveniently skipped over it between Sonic 2 and this new movie Sonic 3 that's gonna be coming out. They could have had Mecha Sonic, since he was the last person that Knuckles had to face in Sonic 3, the video game. And they could have had Egg Robo, who was the floating Eggman dude, who was also the antagonist, the continuous antagonist that Knuckles had to face all throughout the Sonic 3 or Sonic and Knuckles series, or Sonic 3 and Knuckles series. So they didn't do any of this shit. Now, I thought that they were going to go the Egg Robo route because of the fact that this character that they had, he used to be a previous employee of Dr. Robotnik before, you know, he basically got ousted and they didn't want to deal with him or nothing like that. I thought that they were going that route, and they were kind of almost going like the post-Sonic 3 route, where you got to see Knuckles' story and how it was slightly different. So anybody who notices little details in the Sonic 3 video game, you would notice that in the Sonic 3 game, or the Sonic and Knuckles game, they were kind of in that same continuity. But the Sonic 3 game, if you notice, or Sonic and Knuckles game, whenever Sonic would have to go through these different stages, he would have to face Dr. Eggman or Dr. Robotnik, whatever you want to call him. And then Dr. Eggman was the last person that he had to beat. And whereas with Knuckles, it's almost as if he was in the same stages that Sonic was in, especially when you look at Sonic and Knuckles. He had to play all the same stages Sonic had to play, but he had to take a different route. And it was almost as if what he was doing was post what happened between him and Sonic. At least that's how it felt. Because all the bosses were the same, but there were slight differences. Like, for example, in the Mushroom Hill Zone, there was this boss that you had to fight, and it was like this little metal thing that used to float, and he would throw wood at Sonic. And then when he would throw it at Sonic, it would go straight. When he would throw it at Knuckles, he would lob it and it would like bounce off the ground. This is just little nerdy shit that I noticed. That's why I'm bringing it up. I noticed that also too, you know, with the Egg Robo character, instead of Sonic would always every stage have to face Dr. Robotnik, who would be in his little mobile thing, the little floaty egg thing that he would always be in. It was Egg Robo who was in it every time Knuckles was going through all of these boards. So in my head, I'm like, this must be Egg Robo, or somebody who was supposed to be Egg Robo. Or at least that's my perspective based off of the video game. Because my thing is, what connection would Knuckles have to some random ass dude? And really, to be honest, in this TV show, they never defined what his connection was to this dude. It was just like, oh, I saw Knuckles and I just won his power, and that's pretty much it. See, that's some bullshit. You have to create a story that connects the characters and that connects their motives, so that we're driven to understand and maybe even like these different people who we see. Now, I get it. It's supposed to be a comedic tone, but they stomped on comedy so much, they just totally just said, fuck the damn story. We ain't even gonna write it. We ain't even gonna write it the way that people want to see it. We're just gonna focus on making sure the kids are happy, and fans who have absolutely no Sonic the Hedgehog knowledge are happy as well too. But fuck the fans. That's really what they did with this. So going back, they had all these different options. Mecha Sonic, by the way, in Sonic 3 was the last villain that Knuckles had to face. And at some point, he actually ended up going Super Mecha Sonic. That could have been something that they could have done for the Knuckles series, since this was specifically a Knuckles enemy. Now, Sonic did also face him too in Sonic 3, but it was a little bit different. He wasn't a final boss. He was like a side boss. Whereas, or he was the boss of one of the stages, I guess is a better way to put it. He was the boss of Sky Sanctuary. For Knuckles, he was the final boss. And that would have been interesting to see in this series, because really, to be honest, we only saw a handful of fight scenes with Knuckles. And they were good, the ones that we saw, but they were so minimal, it didn't make any sense. And this could have been a great fight sequence to see him face a mecha version of Sonic the Hedgehog, just like he did in Sonic 3. Again, Rouge could have been another good option, because Rouge could have been somewhat of an antagonist, maybe turned love interest if they wanted to go that route, or she could have been someone who ended up turning into an ally, kind of like how it ended up becoming at the end of Sonic the Hedgehog 2, or Sonic Adventure 2. So they didn't go that route either, and I think that would have been very practical for her to be trying to steal the Master Emerald, and Knuckles is trying to protect it and all this other stuff. I think that would have been cool. Another thing that would have been cool too is for the Chaos thing, because the fact that they totally skipped over it. They could have made it like a Knuckles enemy, although we know that Sonic was the one who defeated Perfect Chaos. They still could have made this and changed it so that Knuckles was the one who had to defeat Chaos, because he was heavily intertwined with that storyline with the Master Emerald and everything that dealt with like Knuckles and his people who are all echidnas and things like that. I think that they very much easily could have crafted him into the story and made him a Knuckles villain. And then with the Dark Legion, again, I brought that up, but the reality is that it may have been hard, because I know that was an Archie Comics thing and there could have been some rights and things like that. So I could understand why that story might not have gone there. That may have been a little bit far, and that may be me thinking too far as a fan. But at the same time, that was a possibility. It was a much better possibility than the buyer. Because who the fuck is the buyer? Nobody even knows who the fuck the buyer is, because he's like a literally made up character. So that was, to me, that was weak as hell. The other thing that I will say too is there are a lot of racial undertones in this television series as well too that really aren't being discussed, or things that if you really were paying attention you would catch that were kind of subtle. And so let's talk about that for a second. Knuckles himself as a character is already an allegory for black people. Let's be real. Let's kind of break that down. Knuckles has locks. So he was based on Jamaicans, actually. And then if you look at his shoes, they have yellow, they have red, they have green in them, like a Rastafarian flag. Knuckles is indigenous, and he's a part of an indigenous tribe, almost like how foundational black Americans are. Even like the way that they look and kind of behave. You can see like the family traditions and things like that, kind of like a foundational black American. And then they also were trying to make it clear that even in the video games that he was black, because he would rap. They had him voiced by somebody who was black, and everybody kind of had this idea or this thought that he was black. Like there's not anybody in this world who I've talked to who's a Sonic fan who didn't think that there were subtle tones, or there was a subtle idea that Knuckles was made to be someone who was black. My point is that they made it clear even in this show as well too. One place I'll give you an example of is they threw in a lot of kind of narratives in there, like a lot of like diversity ploys. One specifically that they threw in there was the thing about Wade and his family being Jewish, and Knuckles was talking about how his tribe had basically got wiped out by a bunch of owls. So that's kind of similar to foundational black Americans, and how a lot of us were getting killed off in slavery by the white supremacists. And then they were comparing that to, you know, the Jews getting wiped out in the Holocaust. So they were trying to make that comparison there subtly, without, you know, saying that, Knuckles was black, obviously, because he's a red echidna. And then another thing that I noticed too that I think was very interesting that I wanted to point out was there was a scene, and I want to say it was episode 2. It's either 2 or 3. I can't remember which episode, but there was an episode where he was talking with Wade, and he was talking about what it means to be a warrior. I believe it was episode 2, by the way. But he was talking about what it means to be a warrior. and he was talking about how it was about honor and all this other stuff, and how everything that Wade did is not something that a warrior would do. Whereas Wade had made a comment which I found very interesting, and he said, my dad always told me that a win, and I'm paraphrasing, but he basically said a win is a win no matter what. And so what's interesting about that is that that's kind of how the dominant society operates. They feel like a win is no matter how you win, that makes you a warrior, like kind of Wade House, how he said. The dominant society feels like a win is a win no matter what. So in other words, they love to kind of show any type of trace of them beating or besting a black person, no matter how they were able to best them. And it's funny how they kind of rode with that in this series as if that was like a flex. But it showed you that the dominant society thinks like that. And Knuckles kind of resembled us in that moment, because a lot of us are all about honor and all about respectability. That's why we get into respectability politics so much, and us being the model Negroes of society. That's how we kind of get into that. And Knuckles was kind of embodying that allegory to a certain extent. Because think about it, the dominant society, they love to do little things where they have, like, I'll give you an example. Boxers fighting each other, where like a boxer who was black, who was known to be great, is fighting like some young white dude. A good example of that is Jake Paul fighting Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson is in his late 50s. He's damn near 60, and Jake Paul's in his like late 20s, and they're trying to have them fight. And then they had like a bunch of rumors. I don't know if they're true or not. They had a bunch of rumors about Jake Paul getting to wear headgear, Mike Tyson couldn't, and Jake Paul was going to get drug tested, or not get drug tested, and Mike Tyson had to, and his brother could intervene in the fight. Now again, all those things I just said are rumors. I'm not confirming whether they are true or not. They just were thrown out there. Regardless, even if you take all that stuff away, it's still this idea of somebody who is a 27-year-old white man, fighting a black man who is damn near geriatric. Like it's like these two are fighting each other, and the reason why they're doing it is because if Jake Paul wins, it could be a thing where he's like, oh, I beat Mike Tyson, but it don't matter. None of the nuances and context and everything that I said is gonna fucking matter. They're just gonna use it as a win. So that's what I mean by a win is a win. They did the same thing to Jack Johnson, because Jack Johnson was out there tearing them white supremacists up when he was boxing. And they waited till he was not in his prime to have him face a white dude who was younger, who finally beat him. So they like to do little shit like that, where they try to say that a white person bested a black person, but they try to make that win seem like, it was an even Steven win. It wasn't some other stipulation or some other bullshit. And then what they'll do is they'll turn around, they'll make a movie about the shit. So they love to do stuff like that. And there's other places that they've done that as well too, but I'm just giving you one example. But going back though, I noticed that, and I picked up that they were trying to put these little things in the TV show as well too. But I just wanted to bring up that going back to my points about why I didn't like the TV show. The reality is that it was to me the downfall of a movie series that thus far had a good track record of just being solid. I thought that it was not something that I totally enjoyed. The jokes were okay, but again, because Knuckles was so he had such a lack of presence, I really just didn't care. Kid Cudi didn't make it any better. Matter of fact, his acting was like to me, so that didn't really help either, to be honest with you. The villains, they were some bullshit. I'm just being honest with you. We didn't really get any introductions of real Sonic characters that actually mattered, that we wanted to see, that would have made this series interesting and cool. So we didn't get that either. And then the music, to me, it wasn't really, it didn't really do anything for me personally. I didn't really enjoy it like that. I mean, it was okay. Overall, I just feel like they had so many chances to create a good setup going into the Sonic 3 movie. And I think, again, that Rouge the Bat thing would have been a great setup going into the next movie, or at the very least, some type of backstory more with Knuckles and everything about his past and stuff like that, outside of just like a reference. Now, they did the little musical and all this other stuff and whatnot, but that was again a more of a Wade showcase. That didn't really showcase Knuckles himself so much. I wanted to see more about his backstory, so we could have seen a little bit more character development. And even if you look at, and my wife pointed this out, which I thought was actually interesting, even in that last episode, notice that they focused more on the bowling tournament that was going on between Wade and his daddy than they did on Knuckles fighting the buyer. So we didn't even really get to focus on that from my perspective. You know, we didn't even get to see the final fight scene that he had for real. For real, we saw like parts of him. We saw when he came back supercharged and all that, and that was cool. That was a good finale, but it really wasn't about him per se. So I didn't really like that. I really didn't. I just straight up didn't rock with that. And I'm just gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna say this until I'm blue in the face. I don't give a shit about Wade. No one gave a shit about Wade. And the fact that they put him in the story like he was important to this series, or should have been, was some straight bullshit. Overall, this TV series, or at least this first season, if this is the only season, whatever, this season of the Knuckles TV show, if I had to give it a rating, is 3 out of 10. I did not like this shit. That was awful. And I do not recommend anybody who's a Sonic fan watch it if they want to walk away and not want to punch a damn wall. It's my feelings on it. Anyway, y'all, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed what I had to say. You know, make sure that you leave me a comment below so I can go back to it later. Other than that, I hope you have a good rest of y'all's day, and I'll talk to you later. Peace.